I want to introduce Sharon Weaver. She's the founder and CEO of Smarter Consulting, the vice president for the Digital Women Kansas City Professional Network. She teaches at the local community college, and she's a Microsoft regional director. And if that wasn't enough, Sharon is also the founder and organizer for the Kansas City Microsoft 365 user group. She's a contributor to Microsoft 365 patterns and practices, and she's a Microsoft certified trainer. And it's really not uncommon to see Sharon speaking at events or talking on other Microsoft focused user groups or conferences or podcasts. So thank you so much, Sharon, for coming on and joining me today.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
So for those who haven't had a chance to interact with you, get to know you, talk a bit about your background, who you are, what you do, and where you're from.
So I answer this question a lot, and it always kind of goes down a lot of fun rabbit holes. I have been a nerd my whole life. I've always liked math and language probably a little more than I should have. Both my parents have language majors for their degree programs. So I grew up with a lot of different languages in the house. And I, like most kids, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. All I knew is that I liked solving problems and I liked helping people with things. And I liked putting things together and figuring out how things worked. And so I originally very seriously considered becoming a doctor. And went down that route. And I actually worked in pharmacy for about 7 years. In retail pharmacy.
Oh, wow.
And was trying to figure out, like how I was going to pay for medical school. And I don't know if you know, but being a pharmacy tech doesn't really pay a lot of money. And so I kind of quickly realized that wasn't going to pay for medical school. And so I did this little, I started learning about, like digital media and kiosk design. And I took this little thing at the community college and I was like, maybe I can make some extra money, like doing something on the side. And through the process of that digital media program, they were like, we have this brand new thing and it's called the internet. And we'd like you to learn how to make these things called websites. And, and so I'm like, okay, I could probably do that. As a kid, I liked playing on an Apple IIe and writing BASIC. And I liked playing with my Commodore 64 and, writing the code. And so I'm like, okay, I can handle this. This will be kind of fun. And so I learned how to make websites and kiosks and did digital video editing and things like that. And I kind of, just have always really enjoyed that kind of technical flavor. And along the way, I've had a couple kids. So I've got 2 biological sons. We did foster care for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And through the course of that, adopted our 2 daughters. And then a few years ago, we lost my sister and I adopted my nephew and he is now 16. And so basically, I have spent a lot of time really kind of figuring out who I am and also really spending a lot of time with my family. I'm the oldest of 7 and got a ton of nieces and nephews. And my husband's got 2 sisters. So as you can imagine, our families are fairly big and we spend a lot of time with our families over the last 20 years, just kind of hanging out with people. And then I think the last piece of me is I really love to travel a lot. So if you ask what my hobby is, it's learning and travel. Those are probably my 2 favorite things. And we travel all over the world. In fact, I just got back from Cabo on Sunday. And I like travel so much that I became a licensed travel agent. Not to really do it as a business, but really so that I could plan our trips and really have an insight into the back end of all of that. And so we like to coordinate group travel for our friends and just kind of take them to places they've never been. And we like to go see things we've never seen before. So it all kind of lines up well with all the different things that I've done because I really like learning about technology and I really like learning about travel and I love spending time with friends and family and I love going new places. And so it all just kind of comes together.
Wow, that's really interesting. I did not know about the travel thing. So how did you go from pharmacy tech? I mean, it makes sense. You got into the kiosk and web development. Is that what kind of drove, educationally? Well, I'm trying to figure out, how did you get from there to starting your own company?
So I had worked in pharmacy for 7 years. And I did some web design just kind of like for fun to kind of get into it. And then I started making decent money. And I was still, of course, I had a kid and trying to pay my bills and trying to figure out how I was going to squeeze in family and work and school and all of this stuff. And so I kind of sat down one day and I was like, all right, what are my options? And there was a local company really close that makes pharmaceutical software. And they were looking for people to basically come and help install the software and train the people, the pharmacists, on how to use the software and answer the phone and answer questions and things like that. And they were willing to talk to me. And so I got a job actually migrating people from their old pharmacy system to the new pharmacy system, and implementing pharmacy software. And which was my first kind of like go into an actual software company. And I did that for a little while. And after a little while, I was kind of like, okay, there's got to be more to life than this, right? So I started doing contracting. So I did a bunch of contracts for different places. I did a lot of BA work, got very heavy in the BA community. Did a lot of working with different places, and eventually found this really cool brand new piece of software called SharePoint at one of those jobs. I believe it was installed with TFS, and they're like, hey, Sharon, you're good at applications. Like, can you take a look at this and, maybe make sense of it? And so I kind of figured out what it could do and started training, other people in my team on how we could use it for like alerts and storing documents and things like that. And I was like, this is pretty cool. And I got to know it a little bit better and a little bit better. And when that contract was done and I went to the next contract, they were like, what experience do you have? And I said, well, I've been using this new thing, this new SharePoint thing. Do you guys use that? They're like, oh yeah, we've got that, but nobody wants to own it. Would you like to be the admin and just, we'll let you learn because nobody else knows how to do it. And I'm like, yeah. So I became the SharePoint admin and the Jira admin along with being a BA, right? And so I kind of learned that a little bit. And then when my next contract came along, I'd been doing that for a little while, right? So I kind of like gained all this experience. And then I actually went and I was essentially responsible for all of the SharePoint for a large global engineering company for a couple of years. And I got a lot of great experience and I loved what I did. And there was really just a point, I think, where I knew I wanted more for me than what that position really could offer me at the time. And so I was really kind of looking around at, what I could do, and nothing really fit the bill quite right. And so I had been talking to people and kind of helping people on the side just a little bit, answering questions and things like that. And I was talking to somebody, and it was an IT director who was a woman, and I was kind of explaining, here's kind of what I want to do, but I'm not sure, how I'm going to do it. And when I decided to leave, we met together, and she said, I'd really like to offer you the opportunity to do some consulting work for us. And so I left my job, and I started consulting, and I started consulting for major companies in the area, like large enterprise companies, because I had already, had the relationships and had met a lot of them at different functions and things. And so I went in and I helped them set up a SharePoint practice. And then I went to another place and I helped them set up a SharePoint practice. And then I went to another place and I helped them set up a SharePoint practice. So, setting up the team and training and getting their SharePoint up to snuff, and governance, and, just all the stuff that you're like, nope, you don't know this unless you've done it. But we just want somebody to come help us get it all going. So I did that several times. And I really enjoyed it. And then I just kept getting more and more and more calls. Can you do this? Can you build this? Can you have this? And my husband's a developer as well. And he was actually doing automated QA for a while. And he jokes that I dragged him kicking and screaming into SharePoint because I was like, hey, this QA automation stuff looks a lot like SharePoint workflows. You want to come help me with this? And he's like, okay, why not? And so he helped me. We started building solutions, like actual like custom solutions in SharePoint. And after a little while, like we just had more work than we knew what to do with. And so I started hiring people and getting them more work. And ultimately, I went through a little bit of a rough patch in my life when my sister got sick, and I slowed down and I accepted a contractor position that was just doing some work. It was a great place that really just allowed me to kind of be me at the time and take care of her. and took a couple of years off of the circuit and just worked and kind of did heads down stuff so that I could spend that time with her before she passed. And after she passed away, I actually switched from that contracting role to a different contracting role and did that for a little while. And then that itch kind of came back, like now I was sitting there and I was like, okay, I really love what I'm doing. But once again, people were calling me and saying, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? And I think the two big things that I saw the need for is one is that people just don't know what they don't know. And they just need somebody there to kind of strategically help them, what do I need to do with this? And another piece was just resource management and finding those resources, because when you're talking about things like the Microsoft stack, you don't know, right? You don't know. When we talk about developers kind of know their stuff and we can prove it in some way. But when we start talking about process management and automation and integration and those types of things, it's really tough to decide if somebody is a good fit without actually hiring them on. And a lot of times they don't need somebody for a full-time role. They need somebody to come in and help augment them in some way, or maybe help them build this one thing or build that one thing. And so I just really saw the writing on the wall for the need for somebody to come in and really just be that person to come in and help them to strategically kind of decide where they need to go, answer questions, liaison with Microsoft sometimes, right? Because support tickets aren't the funnest always. Yeah. And also, help them to find the resources that they need. I'm not a recruiter by any stretch of the imagination, but I do know people in the business. And so if somebody needs somebody specifically to write PowerShell scripts or to help with automation or to write an application or whatever, I know the subtle variances of those types of skill sets, whereas somebody may not, in the business, they may not understand the difference. In addition, I was staring down the barrel of this idea that the resource pool is only shrinking, and we weren't getting people coming into tech, and people were leaving it just as quickly as they were coming in. And more importantly, when we talk about women and people of color, it was me and 30 white dudes. I'm sorry, it just was. And I really felt a passion to not only help the businesses, but see a bigger vision of, can I help people out there who may not have had the opportunity to get into tech? Because, you got to be in tech to get in tech. Can I offer that bridge to them to get in and learn about tech and really maybe offer them an opportunity that they might not have had otherwise? And at the same time, serve those clients that desperately need help in some of these niche areas. And so I had kind of spun up things and spun down things a few times. And I really kind of made a decision and drew a line in the sand at some point in like 2017, where I decided I was going to build that, and that was going to be my vision for the next little bit. And so I created Smarter Consulting. And the whole idea is that we're doing this kind of in a smarter way, right? Where the whole idea is that I'm not just your typical consulting group. I'm somebody who has the vision, has the connections, has the ability to come in and strategically help you solve your problems. And it doesn't have to be me. It doesn't even have to be one of my full-time employees, because I have such great relationships and connections in the industry. It may be a product it might be a partner that's selling you a product. It might be a relationship I have with an existing MVP or an existing consultant, or maybe even another company that can really help you to solve those problems. And so I work, sometimes it's me, right? Sometimes what I do is what you need, but a lot of times it's not. Sometimes it's the people I know, or the knowledge I have around bringing the right person in or the right solution in. And so I built that up, and it's been great. I think people have really responded to it well, and we never have any bored moments, for sure. Always answering questions and helping people, and just kind of doing whatever anybody needs. So I've been doing that for almost 5 years next year.
Wow.
We just recently got our women-owned business certification, which is a big deal because it takes a lot of hoops to jump through to get to that. And I am passionately, still recruiting and looking at the underserved community of women and people of color, in addition to men, right? We do have men that work with us, but I really am trying to offer an even playing field to some of those people to have an opportunity. And I think the next steps to this is I'm only going to grow those opportunities in other ways as we kind of build that stability. 2020 kind of pulled us back a little bit, slowed us down a little bit. Everybody kind of pushed the pause button for a little while. But I think this year things have started picking back up, and we're back to being so busy we can't breathe. So I think it's going okay.
Well, yeah. Wow. That's awesome. It's great to hear success stories for small businesses. I'm a huge proponent of small business and how we should support small business. So I'm happy to hear that your business is going well. And I really like your focus as well. I agree with you in terms of, providing opportunities to others who may not have that same opportunity that you or I might have had. So through the course of this interesting career, pharmaceutical industry, through a variety of consulting and your own company, what's something you've witnessed through that we should change? Now, I know you're directly, trying to make an impact on, and maybe this is the change you're trying to make. But is that the right change, or is there another change you've seen throughout your career that if we came to you and said, Sharon, today you have the power to make us either change something or make us consider a change that we should implement, what would that be for you?
I mean, and it's really funny because I have this philosophical conversation a lot, and it's really, I wrote this really long post about 5 or 6 years ago about the future of work and where we were headed and what it means, and a lot of it's really starting to happen, which is really exciting, and it's the idea of flexibility and working remotely, and obviously there are some roles that can't do that, but I think what it all boils down to is treating people like adults. I think there's 2 pieces to that, right? I think if I was to change anything, I would really encourage people to treat their peers, their coworkers, their managers, their subordinates, whatever, like grown-ups, right? And on the flip side, act like a grown-up too. And what that means is, take your commitments responsibly, be accountable for who you are and what you're doing, be responsible for who you are and what you're doing, what you say, what you deliver, what you commit to, obviously honesty and integrity, there, all those core values. But I think if people do what they're supposed to, and people treat them as adults and as grown-ups who, if I hire somebody that has life experience and has a degree and has proven to me that they know how to manage their own days and manage their own lives, why do I then need to micromanage that, right? Why can't I simply say, I have this fantastic resource, let me treat them as such, and let me give them all the opportunities in the world, and it's theirs to sink or swim. And I think if we started looking at business through the lens of treating people like grown-ups and then holding them accountable like grown-ups, I think that would really make a big difference. I don't know that it would solve everything, but I definitely think it would make a big difference in the amount of potential that people have and the productivity that people have, because they would feel better about what they're doing. They would feel more supported about what they were doing. They wouldn't feel, I think, as obligated to do certain tasks that people see as value when they're not value. I think people would be able to integrate work-life balance a lot better, because they wouldn't feel guilty about jumping up from their desk and running a load of laundry or feeding their kids, or running their kid to school or answering a phone call. I think one of the things the pandemic has really done for us is it's really made us a little more human. I absolutely love, and there's a lot of people who will get on phone calls and will apologize their kid or their dog or whatever this noise. And I'm like, no, don't apologize. Like, that's who you are as a person. And that's what's, I mean, obviously we don't want our kids sitting in our laps for every single call. But at the same time, I think there's just this natural thing that happens around us that we've lost touch of. I think we've lost sight of that natural thing, and we've kind of pushed ourselves into cubes and pushed ourselves into boxes where everything's very sanitary, and we've lost sight of, the kid running through the hall and screaming, and the dog barking, and the birds chirping, and maybe somebody knocking on your door and asking you a question, which they're all things that happen in the real world. But I think it's that idea of, if we just kind of take that in as reality, and we let people just do their thing and shine the way they are, I just think the world gets to be a better place. So I think that'd be the thing I would change.
Yeah, I would agree. That's fantastic. So what's next for Sharon? What's next for Smarter Consulting? What's the future look like for you?
So, up till now, I primarily focused on service-based stuff. It's a really good foundation. It's a good place to start. I'm not going to say it's an easy business practice, but it's
Hmm.
an easy to get in, right? You don't have to invest a ton of money to get into a services-based, company. So we started that really to build a foundation. But I have really been spending a lot of time kind of ramping up and learning about startups. And so it hasn't happened yet, but it's definitely on the horizon in the near future for us to put together an actual app startup. We've got multiple apps incubating already. We've already started talking to people who will participate in that. We're kind of doing the getting things put together to kind of solidify it. But there's definitely some app startup coming in our future for sure.
That's amazing. Well, I can't wait to see that and see what the future has for you. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, absolutely.